How do powerful institutions, how do they really respond when one of their own is accused of something serious? Especially when there are big power dynamics at play. And what happens when, a public denial starts to unravel and reveals something much deeper, more systemic? Today we're taking a deep dive into a very recent and pretty significant third-party committee report. It concerns Fuji Media Holdings, FMH, and Fuji Television, CX. And specifically, we're focusing on a sexual violence incident involving a really prominent talent, Nakai Masahiro, and a female announcer who the report calls Female A.
Yeah, and this report, it's really more than just looking into one incident. It's actually a pretty comprehensive look at the company's internal structures, its awareness of human rights, or maybe lack thereof, and its corporate governance. So our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut to understanding why this is such a big deal. We'll unpack the facts the report presents, look closely at how the company reacted internally, and explore those systemic issues it brings to light.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's unpack the incident itself. The report centers on something that happened June 2nd, 2023. Can you just walk us through the background, the connection between Female A and Nakai Masahiro?
Sure. So Female A was an announcer at CX. She had professional contact with Nakai Masahiro, who was, a huge deal for CX, hosted lots of popular shows. Just a couple of days before the main incident, there was this BBQ party at Nakai's apartment. Both were there. And apparently, Female A kind of found herself serving and cleaning up, even though she was a guest.
Okay, a bit strange already.
Right. Then, fast forward to June 2nd, Nakai invites Female A to dinner. Initially, he sort of suggested others might be there too.
Okay.
But the plan changed, and it ended up being just the two of them, a private meeting at his apartment, and that's where the incident happened.
And the report addresses why she went. Right, if she might have felt uncomfortable with it becoming a one-on-one thing.
Yes, definitely. Female A stated she felt she couldn't really refuse the invitation. Why? Because of the huge power imbalance. Nakai's status, her career, she felt it could seriously impact her job if she said no.
So there wasn't really free consent to just any kind of meeting.
Exactly. The report is very clear on this. The committee concluded unequivocally that Female A was a victim of sexual violence by Nakai during that meeting. And the impact was severe. She was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow, PTSD. What kind of symptoms did the report mention?
It lists things like severe insomnia, loss of appetite, body tremors, and this feeling she couldn't get back to being herself. Really serious effects.
And how did the report frame the act itself, legally or ethically?
It explicitly used the World Health Organization's definition of sexual violence. It stressed that this includes any sexual act where consent is not freely given, doesn't matter what the relationship is or where it happens. It called it a serious human rights violation.
That's a very strong statement.
It is, and crucially, the report also concluded that even though this happened in private, outside work hours, it was fundamentally an extension of CX's business.
How so? Because of their professional relationship?
Exactly that. Because of their professional link, and also what the report calls an ingrained company culture around these kinds of talent gatherings. It wasn't just a private matter disconnected from work, in their view.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Now, the really critical part. How did CX, the company, respond when Female A actually reported this? This was June 6, 2023, right after it happened.
Yes, very quickly after. She first confided in CX's industrial doctor, C&D. They apparently recognized how serious it was, even suggested potential legal action. She also told her managers in the announcer's office, E and F.
And what was her initial request? Did she want a big investigation right away?
No, initially she asked for privacy. She actually expressed a desire to keep working, despite everything she was going through.
Okay, so how did CX leadership handle that request for privacy?
Well, this led to what the report points to as a crucial decision. The top leadership Minato, who was CX president then, Ota, a senior managing director, and G, head of production, they decided to treat it as a private issue between a man and a woman.
A private issue? Why?
Their stated reasons were concerns about, quote, stimulating Female A, and also the risk of information leakage if lots of people inside knew. So they kept the information restricted to a tiny circle.
Right, but keeping information that tight, what were the consequences of that, according to the report? Did that help or hurt?
The report argues it really hurt. It meant there was no way to have a proper, comprehensive response involving different departments like HR or compliance, and labeling it private trouble instead of what the report calls a human rights violation. The committee said this showed a significant lack of understanding of sexual violence and low human rights awareness from management.
And the impact on female A continued, even with this quiet approach.
Absolutely. Remember, she was diagnosed with PTSD. She was even hospitalized for it in July 2023. But because of the limited information sharing, the main burden of her care seemed to fall on her manager, F.
Who wasn't trained for that kind of psychological support, presumably.
Exactly. The report notes this put a huge mental strain on Manager F.
Okay, this is already sounding quite messy. And then Nakai himself gets involved again. He reached out to someone at CX.
Yes, he contacted a CX producer, Producer B, someone he'd worked with a lot. And Producer B then did something quite extraordinary.
What was that?
He tried to give female A sympathy money, 1 million yen, in cash.
Wow, cash. Did she take it?
No, she refused it. Producer B apparently said he was just trying to help a junior colleague facing high medical costs, but the report points out this showed a real lack of consideration for her feelings, her situation as a victim.
Yeah, that seems incredibly tone deaf. And Producer B's involvement didn't stop there, did it? There was something about a lawyer.
That's right. This is another critical point in the report. Producer B introduced Nakai to a lawyer, referred to as K-lawyer, to represent Nakai in this whole matter.
Okay. Was there anything problematic about this specific lawyer representing Nakai?
Yes, very problematic. K-lawyer had a long-standing continuous retainer agreement with CX's variety department, going all the way back to 2005.
A retainer with CX itself.
Yes. Apparently the relationship was so close that President Minato even called this lawyer the mobile lawyer.
So CX's go-to lawyer for the variety department was now representing the person accused of harming a CX employee.
Precisely. The report concluded this created a clear conflict of interest. It made it look like CX was effectively siding with Nakai against its own employee, female A.
And the report called that what?
Secondary harm, causing additional distress to the victim through the handling of the situation.
Unbelievable. So while all this is happening, female A is suffering, diagnosed with PTSD. What's happening with Nakai's career at CX? His show.
His popular show, Matsumo to Nakai, it was later renamed Doreka to Nakai, just kept airing.
They didn't even consider pulling it.
Well, the report says management Minato, Ota, G, they did discuss ending it, but they decided not to.
Why not? Same reasons as before.
Pretty much. Again, fears of causing speculation if the show suddenly ended, and again, this concern about stimulating female A.
So Nakai stays on air. What about female A's work? She initially wanted to continue working.
She did, but eventually, in October 2023, she was removed from her regular programs. The report quotes her as feeling like everything was taken away.
While Nakai is still on TV and probably posters up in the building.
Exactly. A constant reminder of her trauma, the report suggests. And the end result. Female A ultimately resigned from CX in August 2024.
Why did she resign?
She felt she couldn't go back to work in an environment where she might run into Nakai.
So the internal handling was clearly deeply flawed based on this report. But things like this rarely stay completely private, do they? What happened when it started getting out?
Right. The report details how the crisis just escalated for CX. Rumors started spreading inside the company, and then weekly magazines got wind of the story and started investigating.
How did CX handle the public side initially? Any better than the internal side?
Not really, no. Their first public response was heavily criticized. There was a statement on their website, December 27th, 2023. It vaguely mentioned some weekly magazine reports, but didn't even acknowledge sexual violence.
And then there was a press conference.
Yes, the first one, January 17th, 2024. And by all accounts, it was a complete disaster.
What went wrong?
Leaders described the incident as a highly sensitive private matter. They restricted media access, like no TV cameras allowed, only limited reporters, and they just kept deferring questions, saying a future investigation committee would handle it.
Not very transparent.
Not at all. There's even an anecdote in the report where President Minato tried to get a news program to change its caption from sorry to explanation when covering the press conference.
Wow. So that press conference, he didn't exactly calm things down, did it?
Quite the opposite. It seems to have been a major turning point. The report suggests that the backlash from that event, from external directors on their board, from institutional investors, from the labor union, that's what forced a real reevaluation.
So the pressure came from outside.
It looks that way. All that outcry led directly to the third-party committee being set up really quickly on January 23rd, 2024.
And they had another press conference shortly after.
Yes, a second one on January 27th. And this time, the tone was apparently quite different. more transparent, acknowledging the seriousness. It really reflected that external pressure and the fact that this independent committee was now involved.
Did the report mention any financial fallout from all this?
Yeah,
Sponsors getting nervous?
Oh, definitely. The financial hit was substantial. CX reported a potential revenue loss around 9.5 billion yen.
9.5 billion yen. Wow. From sponsors pulling ads.
Yes, that's what the report indicated. Sponsors pulling their advertising because of the controversy.
Okay, so this single incident had massive repercussions. But you said earlier the report goes beyond just this one case. It found other issues.
Yes, absolutely. The committee didn't just look at the Nakai female A incident in isolation. It uncovered what it described as a pattern of inappropriate gatherings and other systemic failures.
Can you give some examples? What else did they find?
Sure. There was an earlier incident, the Sweet Room Party, in December 2021. This also involved Nakai and other female announcers, including one called a Female Announcer Q.
What happened there?
According to the report, after other staff left, Nakai allegedly sexually harassed female announcer Q, touching her knee, shoulder, collarbone, getting his face very close to hers.
And CX knew about this kind of party.
Well, the report notes that CX actually paid for the Sweet Room expense, which suggests these kinds of events involving talent and announcers were somewhat normalized.
Okay, what else? You mentioned producer B earlier when he tried to give the money.
Yes, producer B himself had a prior incident noted in the report. Back in 2020, there was an allegation of sexual harassment involving him and a junior female employee touching her, trying to kiss her.
And was that dealt with properly?
The report says it wasn't escalated to compliance or HR at the time. It seems to have been handled or maybe mishandled at a lower level.
So a pattern potentially emerging even with individuals. Any other cases?
Yes, another one from July 2022. A different CX employee, called B, was found to have committed violence and sexual harassment against a female colleague in the variety production department.
Violence too.
Yes. And again, the report suggests this was initially downplayed and managed poorly internally, though B did eventually receive a disciplinary suspension.
This is quite a list. Anything else stand out?
Perhaps the most striking, because it involves current leadership, is what the report calls the Sorimachi harassment. This dates back to 2006-2007.
Sorimachi, isn't he a current director at CX?
Yes, a current director and also a main news anchor. Back then, he was accused of harassment by 2 female employees.
And what happened?
Despite internal complaints and even media reports later on, Sorimachi apparently faced no disciplinary action at all. In fact, he was promoted eventually to an executive role and his prominent anchor position. CX even publicly denied the allegations back then.
So someone accused of harassment years ago with no apparent consequences is now in a top leadership role.
That's what the report lays out. It really underscores the systemic issues the committee found.
Looking at all these incidents together, what's the overall picture the report paints of the culture inside CX, particularly for women or female announcers?
It paints a picture of a pervasive culture of inappropriate gatherings, where employees, especially female announcers, were often expected or pressured to attend events, sometimes based on their looks, age, or gender.
And harassment at these events.
Frequently overlooked or maybe even implicitly condoned or abetted, according to the report's findings. It specifically highlights the vulnerable position of female announcers because of the intense career pressure and the significant power imbalances.
So boiling it all down, what is the report's ultimate conclusion about the root cause of all this at CX?
The core conclusion is pretty stark. It points to a profound lack of human rights awareness throughout the organization. This was made worse, the report argues, by a big gender gap and a heavily male-dominated organizational structure.
And the systems failed too. Governance.
Yes, the internal controls and corporate governance were found to be insufficient. The report uses terms like original bureauism, meaning departments acting like silos, too autonomously, and groupthink.
Groupthink leading to bad decisions.
Leading to a black box decision-making process. Opaque, resistant to outside scrutiny or internal challenges.
Did the report connect this to other scandals CX has faced?
It did. It explicitly drew parallels to how CX handled other sensitive issues in the past. The Terrace House problem, the issues surrounding the former Johnny's office, and the Matsumoto Hitoshi problem.
Suggesting a pattern.
Suggesting a consistent pattern, yes. A pattern of insufficient human rights awareness and poor crisis management stretching back some time.
Wow. Well, this deep dive has certainly taken us from, one deeply disturbing incident involving female A and Nakai, right through to uncovering these really widespread systemic problems within a huge media company. And it really shows how that initial instinct, maybe, to contain a problem, to deny it, can actually backfire and lead to a much bigger crisis of trust and accountability down the line.
Absolutely. And the findings here really force us, I think, to look beyond just individual actions, however harmful they are. We have to consider the whole organizational culture, the governance structures, the things that either allow these acts to happen or fail to protect the people who are harmed. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that having strong human rights policies, having grievance mechanisms that actually work and are transparent, these aren't just, corporate buzzwords or compliance boxes to tick. They're absolutely essential safeguards for any organization.
So, thinking about what this all means for you, listening, maybe consider, whether it's in your own life or at work, those invisible pressures that exist in any hierarchy. How do power dynamics shape the way people interact? Sometimes in ways that aren't obvious at first glance. And maybe also think about how individual voices, sometimes at great personal risk, like female A's, can actually challenge those long-standing problematic norms and start to push for real accountability and hopefully lasting cultural change.